STEAM theme, STEM and STEAM learning, and we've been partnering for 10 years with the Timothy Smith Network here at the Harvard-Smithsonian, and so it occurred to me that Milton Irving would be a great speaker to talk about technology education, and the title of his talk today is From the Digital Divide to Digital Opportunity, Equitable Access for All. And we're really thrilled that you brought a crowd with you as well. Usually it's all attendance. So
we roll deep around here.
Yes, that is really great. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Let me introduce Milton. He's a leading voice for digital equity and CEO and executive director of Timothy Smith Network. His career focus has been bringing access to technology to those who need it most, and we're really interested in hearing from him around how we can be allies in doing that. So before he was executive director of Timothy Smith, he worked in D.C. for One Economy, which was One Economy Corporation, where he worked with corporate executives, NGOs, and elected officials to bring purposeful online services to underserved communities. So for those of you who don't know, the Timothy Smith Network has 24 technology labs in and around the greater Roxbury, Boston area that bring technology services to over 4,000 residents, totaling over 2 million technology contact hours annually. So that's really amazing. And for his work to bridge the digital divide, Milton has been recognized by the City of Boston, the City of Baltimore, the District of Columbia, the Knight Foundation, Venture Cafe, Microsoft, and Telly Awards, to name a few. So I think we have a lot to learn from what Milton has to say, and I really welcome you warmly to our Science Education Seminar.
Good morning. All right, here we go. One more time. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, that's my crowd right there. So I thank you all for coming today. This journey that we're going to go on this morning really embraces and embodies my own personal journey. Right? Before I can talk to you about how we impact people in our community, our young people, of course, specifically because they are the future, as they say, I need to talk about just my personal journey, where I've come from, that journey, into where I am today. So you're going to have to strap yourself in a little bit. There's going to be ups and downs, but I assure you at the end, it'll be very promising what the future looks like for all of us and for the folks in our community. And I have my aunt in the front row, and she gets a little teary and water-eyed, and she's already started. So bear with her, but it's all good because this is all love. I have nothing but family, friends, and supporters around this room. So this is all, you all are all a part of my village. Okay, so a lot of my talking today will be about my village experience, the people in my village who helped me become the man I am today, to work with others who are amazing, to help me continue to build upon the foundation of the Timothy Smith Network, of Mr. Timothy Smith, who was a local merchant of Roxbury, who left the city funds when he passed away in the early 1900s, which then birthed the Timothy Smith Network. And so you think 1996, Mr. Smith passed away in early 1900s. So 1996 happens, right? They find this will. What is going to happen with this money? We had an amazing, amazing representative within the city, Bob Fleming. I don't know if any of you all know Bob. I know we have some good cheerleaders for Bob because he's a great man. Him and others constructed the Timothy Smith Network. Bob gave his sweat, his tears, everything he had, and actually gave his job for us to be here. And that is amazing. This is a man who stood in front of others and said, no, we need to do X. So the X was they had to find a way to create a vehicle that benefited the greatest amount of people within Old Roxbury, In 1996, it was about bridging the digital divide. What does that mean? That means getting computers and technology into the community. And so now that we've done that, we can check that box. And now it's about leveraging that technology, right? So people can use that technology to impact not only their lives, but the lives of their brothers, their sisters, their sons, their daughters, and their community. That's what's truly important. So let's go on this journey real quick, and let's just have a good time today. Stop smiling. So I am also a part of a fraternity, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. I'll see some laughter because we have some Kappas and some other people in here, but that's okay. But we're going to start off with unity, emoji. And I will also say that there is 7 principles of Kwanzaa. There's also called 7 principles of blackness. I might chop up some of these things, and I ask for crowd participation as we get through this. But unity. So, this is the start, right? Young Milton Irving. On the left, there's me blowing a balloon. This was at Disney World. My grandmother and my Aunt Sissy took me to Orlando, Florida when I was very young. So they gave me access, right? Remind yourself, access, access, access. They gave me access to something totally different, which was amazing. And then that's my grandmother. That's my mother, my big mama, my best friend, everything. She, awesome. Then you have up in the right-hand corner, this is a graduation of mine. And you'll see a couple of people who you might see around this room. And what that represents is just family coming together, right? Supporting each other through accomplishments. Then at the bottom, there's the graduation. You'll see some couple. Melissa, you see yourself? She's in here, my aunt's in here, and there's my Aunt Sissy right there who actually, took me to Disney World. And that's me, cheesing, right? We're celebrating accomplishments as a family. We're coming together celebrating accomplishments. But not everything is always green, right? We always have ups and downs, trials and tribulations. This beautiful woman is my mother. So unfortunately, my mother was killed when I was 18 months. So I never got to meet her, all right? So there's the ups and downs, trials and tribulations that we all go through in life. But we have family once again, to come back together to support each other. And that's what we have to keep thinking and reminding ourselves as we think through what does access mean for the individual and for the community? And how do we bond together to support each other? Not just via the technology, but to support us as individuals, as human beings. It has to start there before we can ever begin to introduce technology, STEM, STEAM, education practices. We have to build each other up first and support each other. And then that's Paige. She's back there too. That's Paige. And then, okay, here's the word that I'm going to have some trouble with. Does anybody think they can figure this out up top? Ah, there you go. I'm glad you got that. Thank you very much. Self-determination, the bottom one. Okay, there we go. Collective responsibility, right? So if you think through the pictures I just showed you, self-determination, ups and downs, but still ready to move forward. Collective responsibility, family, community, coming together to support each other. Young people, very important. Support each other. Extremely important. So, here we go. 1982-83. I have the white sweater on right there. I went to school in the suburbs, Weston. I don't know how many of you all heard of Weston before, but I went to school in the suburbs. And what does that mean? What access did that give me? Gave me a lot, actually. Got me to understand what other communities and other people, how they lived. I didn't come from a very affluent family in terms of financials, but love all day, every day, overflowing. What do we know? Elementary and middle schoolers do not have adequate access to computer science. Suburban schools, 61%. Urban schools, 56%. Rural schools, about 41% in terms of access. This was my first introduction. Okay, somebody knows this. Does anyone know the Oregon Trail? Okay, so there you go. That's right. First grade, I had access to the Oregon Trail, right? So going to school in the suburbs, I had that access. But when I came home, I had friends who didn't have that access. They heard about what a computer was. You know, they heard it, and I would come home and I would talk about it, and oh, this great game, Oregon Trail, yada, yada. And they were like, well, okay, that's great, but what does that have to do with me? How is that relevant to my life? Because I don't have access to it. I can't touch it and feel it. I just hear about it. So think about that at a very early age, not having that access. And then what seed does that plant when you have other people talking about something that you don't have access to, but what you should have access to? I'm glad you caught that, by the way. So, students who learn computer science, high school, are 6 times more likely to major in it, and women are 10 times more likely. Something to think about. Giving access. What is that seed? How does it get planted? And what does it turn into? You talk about investment. That's a good return on your investment. It's an awesome return. So this is me, high school, again, right? I was very blessed with athletic ability. I don't know, my uncle's in here somewhere, because I actually took this. He created this, again, talking about family. He created this booklet with a whole bunch of clippings of me. Stephen, this is his son. He'll probably do that for you too if he hasn't already. But, you know, playing football, you know, created this sense. It was another village for me, right? I was able to have teammates. Because at that point in time in high school, you know, a lot of things hit me, as a lot of things do with teenagers going into high school. One of those things that was hitting me is I was around people who had that nuclear family. And yes, I didn't have the mother and the father there. I had a great supportive system, but still that was a hard thing to deal with. It was a very hard thing to deal with. And so I masked all of that into my athletics, right? The anger, wanting to work with others, wanting the support system, wanting to be loved in a different way. My football coach and my teammates became that for me. And I was very fortunate to excel. I don't know if you guys see some of the profile highlights. Jodeci, you guys remember Jodeci? Some people, okay, well that was my group back in the day. And if you see career ambitions to work with inner city kids, that's amazing. So this was 1994. So that's just, it's a little foresight about, you know, what can happen if the investment is made early. So, left high school, went to college, graduated, leaving, going back and forth, trying to figure out, went to prep school. What do I do with my life? What happens next? Where do I end up? I end up in New York City, the Big Apple. For a kid who wasn't sure what he was going to do with his life, how do you end up in New York City where there's just tons of everything happening, right? Because I wanted to get away, to be very honest with you. But I didn't know what getting away actually meant. But in doing so, I did one of the worst things that a young man could do, especially a young man that comes from an awesome village as mine. I disconnected myself. I ran away from pain, from having to confront certain things, and I left. And I got trapped in the jungle. So it took me a while to kind of figure out what happened. So I was in New York for maybe about 3 or 4 years, just trying to search. What am I going to do with my life? I had no real direction. At that point in time, if you remember, Craigslist just jumped off. And so there was a job posting for a youth director position at One Economy Corporation in Washington, D.C. And I said, okay, well, I wanted to work with youth. One Economy Corporation was built upon bridging the digital divide via the access of technology. I like technology, so let's apply. Resume was very short at that point in time. I'll say that too. So this was a long shot at best. But I submitted it. And what happens? I get a call. Oh, we want you to come in and interview. Okay, great. Jump up. Let's go. Let's get to it. I meet the regional VP, Mark Levine, who now is a city councilman for New York. And he said, well, your resume is not that great, but there's something in you that is inspiring, something in you that I believe. So we're going to send you to Washington, D.C., where the headquarters of One Economy was. So I go to D.C. I meet Ray Ramsey, CEO of One Economy Corporation, a black man, the first black man who's the CEO that I've ever met in my life. Like this, Caucasian folks, this is just a little different right here. Because this is a black man who had Caucasian folks under him, and he was in power. I've just never seen it. Again, access. What do we have access to? I've never seen that before. That blew my mind. And I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not, but I know this is where I wanted to be because I wanted to learn. I wanted to understand. So I met with Ray. We sat for 2 hours. 2 hours. Not even talking about the job, but just talking about life. He mentored me in those 2 hours. And then he said, I'm not going to give you the job. But he did say, I'm not going to give you the job, this position. I'm going to give you another position. He said, because if I don't open the door for you, then who else will? Said something that's always stuck to me. There's no such thing as a self-made man. There's somebody who encourages you, someone who opens the door for you, someone who gives you the platform to move ahead. So, anybody? The bottom. Here we go. So, this was my job. Here we go. My first job in technology was this. This was my opening. Now let me see if let me see if I can go back. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can play this so you guys can get. No, I might not be able to. But this was my job, wearing a bee costume. One Economy created a website, a web portal called the Beehive, filled with information to kind of help you in your life, financial literacy, education, a whole bunch of stuff, right? And they were hyper-local portals. So Boston had one, DC had one, New York had one. So B-mail, right? Corny, but that's what it was. We had a partnership with Google. So this was my job. This was it. So he said, young man, if you wanted to really be here, then you're going to put the work in, right? He gave me an opportunity, but he said I have to work for that opportunity and to stay here. So not everything is just going to be given to us. We all should know this. We're not always going to start where we want to be. I wanted to be an NFL player. I wanted to be in music. I wanted to do all of those things. But this was my opportunity. So why fight that opportunity? That is a blessing right there. So we don't fight our blessings. We take them in, right? We hold them and we rock them out. That's our job. So there we go. That became my new family. This is One Economy Corporation in the hallway. And what's interesting about this, so this is Eddie. This was 2005. Eddie's a multimillionaire. He developed apps, so I got to learn from him. That's Clyde. He works for DC Housing. That's Makiba. She is in LA with kids. This young woman right here helped create Lyft. Pretty awesome. And this gentleman right here, I can't give you his name, but he works for the federal government. That's all I can say. But, you know, I got to learn from these people, right? So you think about it, this is a guy in a bee costume in his first job in technology. I got to surround myself with these awesome minds. I got to learn, got to soak in. And that was pretty hard because, again, I'm the athlete, right? I'm number one, preseason All-American. I did all that. But now I have to humble myself. I have to humble myself because I know where I want to get to. And I have to listen and learn. But I always want to be in the front. I don't want to sit in the back. I want to be in the front of the classroom, okay? Because I also want to be seen while I'm listening. So people can understand that I'm serious. when you were in grade school, they always said, sit in the class, fake it till you make it, even if you don't. That always stuck with me. So I'm always trying to be in the front, as some people might know. In that experience, I got to work with Senator Obama. This is the Beehive website, and this is an opening that we had in North Carolina. Senator Obama, of course, became President Obama. And I was very fortunate throughout my career in D.C. to have worked beside him, to learn from him. And I carry his spirit and what he gives on a daily basis. Because it's a North Star, right? Whether or not you like the man, his accomplishment is a North Star. You have to think what it takes as an individual, as a man, as a black man, to be able to put himself out there to become the President of the United States. While D.C., of course, again, not everything is rosy. One economy closed its doors. So what do I do now? Right, this is about 2010. The economy is a little shaky, I think, if you remember, 2010. So a lot of nonprofits had to close their doors. And so I'm like, okay, what now? I was in New York, found this, now I'm in D.C., found this awesome job. I got to wear an awesome bee suit. And now I don't have the suit anymore. That was my superpower. Superman has a cape, I had a bee suit. But this is a place that my friends and I frequently, a lot. This was on U Street in D.C., Washington, D.C. And this man right here, this is a homeless gentleman, was across the street. And we were, there's my glass. So, I had a cocktail. And there was a man across the street, and he just is looking at me. And I'm like, what is this dude looking at me for? Like, what does he want? I turn around, start chatting it up. 5 minutes later, I turn back around, and he's literally right here. And, of course, the windows are open. It was a nice summer day. And he just said, young man, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like, what? It's okay. I talked to him, of course. And he puts his hand out. And so when a man puts his hand out, you put your hand out too. You shake him, you look him in his eye, and you have a conversation. And he said, there's something about you. I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that is awesome. And he said, I wanted to tell you that I believe in you. Never met this man before in my life. No idea. I've never seen him again. I'll tell you, I've been searching for him. Every time I go to D.C., I'm on U Street looking for this man. Because this is a moment that changed my life. Again, talking about community, building each other up, right? And that can come from anybody. So for right now, I'm looking at you young men right here. I believe in all of you. All of you. I believe in everything that you could do. You guys are awesome. I don't know how many times you hear people tell you that, but you guys are awesome. You are beautiful young princes, who will become amazing kings. Hit me later, hit me later, hit me later, hit me later. That's on me. You got me. Hit me later. But again, right? It can come from anywhere. And this happened. So this could have been my grandmother, my mother, my granddad, everyone else. Papa just looking up, saying, okay, we're going to send this man to me. Here we go again. TSN. This is now 2014. I had no idea that I was coming back to Boston. Remember, I was running away from Boston, right? I did not think I was coming back to Boston at all. Wasn't thinking about it, whatever. But my God had a different story, a different path for me, right, than I thought I had. I thought I knew it all. Clearly I didn't. So TSN comes along, Timothy Smith Network. I'm like, what is TSN? Never heard of it before. So I come to Boston and I meet Susan O'Connor, the first executive director of TSN. Amazing woman. Laid down the foundation with Bob and others to help build this phenomenal organization. And lo and behold, Susan and I have met before. We sat on a panel when I was at One Economy Corporation at Northeastern University. We had no clue until after we met. So again, if you think about it, relationships, right? And making sure you leave a good impression. Because you never know. when you're going to meet people again. You have no idea. So my man, there you go. You never know when you're going to see me again. Right? Because you might need me someday. And I'm going to remember whether or not, okay, did he stay awake or did he fall asleep? I'm going to remember that. But again, that's us working together. That is not belittling him at all. That is me saying to him, we got to stay awake. They say stay woke. There you go. We have to. So, but in order, before I can get into doing the work of TSN, what do I have to do? I have to come back to Boston. I have to get connected again with the community. So this right here is Mel King, another mentor of mine. Mel King actually taught my mother and father in school. Amazing, right? Like, who would have thought? He's a part of the Timothy Smith Network, the South End Technology Center. And when I met him, when I came back, he said, you come from good stock. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? But that's what he said. That's Thaddeus Miles. And Thaddeus he had an initiative of, I think it was over 100 black men in Boston, where he shot on Humboldt Avenue in Boston. And so this was something that was happening at the Boston Foundation. It was a conversation. And this right here was one of my first races in the community, 5K race. Timothy Smith now does it annually. Dr. Blake, who's my board chair, there you go, hands up, Dr. B, actually runs in this race with me, as well as some other people in this room, Donna Carter, and others. Well, walk. Okay, y'all walk, but you're going to race next year. We're going to get you racing next year. So I had to get reconnected, right, to the community. But I also had to get reconnected to my family, right, first and foremost. But in the ups and downs, once again, right, I had the opportunity. That's an up. I came back, and we lost our cousin, Dave Walker. But what I learned from my past about community and about supporting each other is that we came together and we found that love. Right, Cheeks? Right? And that is a blessing. Again, learning, understanding your past, your experiences, and making sure you're carrying that forward. And so this is the other family right here. And we have Olivia, who is another amazing cousin, niece, godchild, who is now working for the Red Sox. And you have, there you go, Cheeks. I call her Cheeks. She works at the State House. And phenomenal. Then we have Danielle, also phenomenal. Graduate, mother. Then we have Bree. Where's Sabria? This is a fighter right here. A complete fighter. You have no idea what she's been through. And she's still here. And she's still smiling. So we all, again, have our trials and tribulations. But we have to find those things in our daily walk that make us smile. Right? So whatever it is, it's important for me that on a daily basis, there are a couple of things that I do. That I make sure I make someone smile. I make sure that I make someone feel noticed and appreciated. Because those seeds that you plant in them will allow that to blossom up, right? And in doing so, they will feel encouraged. They will feel inspired. They will feel like you are somebody that you can trust. Trust. Very important thing if you're trying to go into a community and build. What are you building without trust? How's it going to stand? It's not going to stand for too much longer if the people that you're building it for don't trust you. And unfortunately, we are in a community in the city, just like many others, who have people who want to come in and build, but don't build the trust. Fortunately, I work for an organization that has built that trust. But that's something that we don't take for granted. We work hard every day. And we are very fortunate that we have other people who believe in us as individuals, but the work that we're doing, which is why my whole village is here today. So, household medium net worth. Ah, you guys know this one, huh? Okay. And what does it say for U.S. blacks, especially in Boston? This is actually hyper-local. $8. $8. Access was not given, clearly, Seeds were not planted, clearly. So, what does that mean? That means $8 net worth. I'm not going to ask too many people, how much money you got in your pocket? You got $8? You have a card or something, right? Okay, all right. All right. That's a serious statistic. If this doesn't move you to want to do better or to say we have to change the game somehow, that's a problem. $8? So with $8, but we know that technology and math pays 2 times the state average. 2 times. So we have to give people that access again, right? Not just the access, we have to give them the ability to leverage that access. We have to think through, how do we do that? How do we give a community of people who haven't had access and say to them now, 2014, 2018 now, going on it is 2019, to say to them, okay, technology is important, but we haven't given you the access in grade school. If you made it to college, you might have some access, but you have so many other things you have to worry about because you might be working, going to school part-time. So where's that investment coming in? But we're going to throw technology at you, but we're not going to tell you how to leverage it properly. We're not going to tell you how to navigate it properly. Curriculum experts say coding is essential in the digital economy. So going back to 1983, 84, going back to the Oregon Trail and others, that's when I had that access. That's when I started thinking about coding. This is 1983. It was a long time ago. Can I ask you young people a question? Do you guys code? No. You've done it before. So that's 1, that's 2, maybe 3. This is, what year is this? 2019 again? And I started in 8, yes.
We do offer it to our 8th graders.
Yes.
So they're eligible.
I got you. But see, again, just think through that a little bit. I have another question for you all. Do you guys consider yourselves mathematicians or engineers? Give me some. Tell me why.
Because I know we can do the work.
Okay. So I'm going to say that you all are actually engineers. We're all engineers. This body that we have is really a living computer, if you think about it. Like right now, my body is thinking about steps right now, right? So you're an engineer, or you have the capacity, clearly, to be engineers. So this is not a foreign thing for us. But we're not taught in that way to make it digestible for us so that we can understand what that means. And that is a shift that has to happen. Because even if you play sports, you're getting ready to lay out. I don't play ball. This is all I got. This is all I got right here. I don't do too much of that. But if you think about laying up a ball or dunking a ball or dribbling a ball, your mind is a computer. It's calculating all the time, right? So you're an engineer. Or you have the capacity, again, to be an engineer. You have those instincts that are already embedded in you. That's what we have to start telling people, seeding them differently. We have to seed them differently. So, impact use of technology for TSN. Of course, we have access at the bottom. Skill development, again. So making it digestible so they can understand what technology means for them. And then getting them into that pathway of the digital economy. So important. Technology isn't. How many people have cell phones? Right. How many people know how to really use and leverage their cell phones? That's less than half. That's the problem, everyone. That's it. Because most people don't have access, unfortunately, of whether it be a laptop or a desktop at home, but they have cell phones. I understand they're all built differently. I understand that. I understand that services are all different as well. But there are things that we all can do to help benefit our lives using that cell phone. planting seeds again. Right? These two images right here mark freedom for me. These are freedom moments. This is a young man using a Microsoft HoloLens. Blew his mind. And now he says, continues to say, when can I have more? When can I use it again? How do I get involved? What's happening? Wants to be involved now. Right? And you have this other young man, photo credit to my frat brother over there. Thank you very much. Look at his face. What do you think he's thinking about right now? Like, what is this? This is a robot. I get to touch and play with a robot? What could happen? The trajectory has changed, shifted. A new narrative has begun for his life, their lives. Here we go. Youth Astronet. I know many of you know about Youth Astronet, a great partnership that we have with the Harvard-Smithsonian. This is probably one of the major reasons that we're here. Why is that? Because we have an institution that believes in the work, that is committed to this work. And we also have, again, I told you I work with phenomenal people. We also have a phenomenal woman, Adrienne Law, who's in the back, who spearheads this work. See, I know. Yeah. But 2018, 138 youth now have access. Their narratives have shifted. They're able to look and to experience different things that they haven't before. These two young men right here, Adrian took them to, where'd you take them, Adrian? Took them to Washington, D.C. So you can't see the rest, but there's a huge crowd on the other side. These young men were nervous, but they got up and talked about their work. Their narrative has totally shifted. I'm sure a year before this, they didn't think they were going to go to Washington, D.C., to the Smithsonian, talking to educators and others from across the world. But that access was given. Their narrative has shifted. I love this picture right here. Because you have a young man, Pabel, who's up here, and these young two women exploring. Do you know what they're looking at, Mary? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
I can tell it looks like they're using microscope images.
Yes. So they're able to explore and look at totally different things in a new way. So that is awesome.
I didn't get to do that.
Oh, okay. See? Again, access. Seating. Getting to explore. And we have here Miss Law again in the back. We started a robotics program. How many years has it been, Adrian? 2007, so over 10 years. And last year, we said we wanted to do more, right? We can't have 10 years of the same program. We wanted to do more. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to elevate it. So Adrian was able to strengthen our partnership with Northeastern University, the first engineering students, and said we need to do something different. So we created the first Lego League, right? Which now gives the kids the opportunity to compete, to think differently how they're creating their robots, their engineering, their coding, their design. I love this picture. I love this picture. Because this shows them together, right? Going through a pilot program that has never been done, and they were one of the only black teams there, and yes. But these are trailblazers now. Talk about black history. Here you go. Right here. Because we were able to feed them in a way and support them where they have strength, where they could stand on their own. So even if they don't do this the following year, they now have the confidence to try different things. And not only try different things, but to demand different things in their lives. So it's important as we think through this, Youth Astronet, First Lego League, and developing partnerships and relationships, that we continue to look for partners who believe in us and who are committed to make a change, who understand the disparities that are within higher ed and employment, but say we need to do more. And how do we find a committed organization, TSN plug, that has the trust in the community? So if you build those together, this is what happens. Then when you wanted to get really wild and crazy, there was an organization called Youth Design that sunsetted about a year ago. But we said we wanted to do something in design. So I got together with Alessandra Brown over there, who just came back from Texas, from South by Southwest. She's an amazing person. And others, and said, okay, how do we create a new design program for youth? How do we give them a different pathway? And so we have Nisha, who's right here. She couldn't be here today because Boston Design Academy is running at this very moment. And we said we need to give these kids another opportunity to think through not only design process and thinking, but also how do you design and process your own internal life? How do you give yourself and think through the strategy of moving through life, whether that's educational, personal. So we had the Boston Design Academy that launched last year. And these are the young women and men that were at Mass Robotics. So they were able to deal, play around, create robots. They're also, Nona is here, another mentor of mine. Nona was at NASA, and she was a supporter. She believed in Alessandra and Nisha, and then we met, and then she became another big sister aunt. You know, I'm a family person. And so she is now a support system now because she saw greatness in us as individuals and believed in our work enough to say, I support you. So now we have somebody from NASA who sees greatness in the ones around her and says, we want to support you. And how do we do that? So if you think about collective responsibility, how do you bring on others? Again, it starts with the individual. If you build up the individual in ourselves and they're able to exude that when they talk to people, then that's somebody you probably want to sit around and talk to a little bit more. You want to understand their journey. You want to understand where they want to go and the things that they want to be a part of. The great thing about this program, too, so you have NASA, you have Microsoft, you have the City of Boston, Boston Public Library, and Boston Public Schools. And I have some friends here from the city. There you go. Ava, thank you for coming. So we created those partnerships because, again, there was a belief in the individuals and an understanding of the disparities and what needed to happen. So we have people who believed in us and believed in the young people that if we built it, you guys would absorb it and take it and rock it, which you guys do. So women make up 24% of workers in tech. We know that this is International Women's Month. This is Women's Month. Women's Month. So again, we support each other. And so I'm going to talk about these women here. So again, there's Nisha, has circuits there, right? So she's working with a young woman using circuits right now. And she's engaged because Nisha is somebody that believes in you, like hardcore. She believes in the people that she touches. There you go, Miss Law right there, teaching a young man how to code, and this is for Legos Robotics. You have Kristen right here. So Kristen, and this is her husband, they developed a company. And what's important for not just what I learned at One Economy, but what we do at the Timothy Smith Network, is that we build up people within our community, and then we give them a platform to excel. So these two individuals are now doing programming at some of our lab spaces already. So you have a young woman and man, couple, married, kids, developed a tech company. And now we're giving the platform to do their thing, which is amazing. And we have Sister Amanda, who works in our IT department. And this was at the DeWitt Center. Sister Amanda is amazing for a number of different reasons. One, because she's an awesome woman, that's first. Two, she's an awesome educator and tutor, and she taught some of my own cousins who have done amazing things. Three, she works at the Timothy Smith Network, so she's already awesome. But four, she challenges herself. And in challenging herself, we want to give her the platform and the opportunity to do other things. So if you think about it, if you show that you're willing to do something really well and you're committed to it, doors will open. And if doors don't open, make your own door. Because you're engineers. So you can engineer that. Then again, we have Alessandra. Now, this is a big deal going to South by Southwest. I don't know if many of you know about South by Southwest, but she was on a panel. So I had to give you some love. Where are we with time? How are we doing with time? 10 more minutes? Okay. 10 more minutes. Yep. And then there I go, right? Full circle. This is one of my happiest moments. Going back, starting off, thinking about how I started. Having a strong family who was supportive, having strong friends who are supportive, having the loss that I've had in my life, running away from that loss, right? Because it was easy to run away. But then you have to face it at some point, right? You can't run forever, that's for sure. So at some point you have to face that. And then in facing that, you have to be the strongest person that you thought you could ever be. Because then you have to become vulnerable. You have to face fears. You have to face things that you're going through. And you have to face people that you know you've done wrong by. And say, I'm sorry. Then once you do that, you come out stronger than ever. And when you're able to come out stronger than ever, you get to do awesome stuff like this. You're able to tap into what you already have, being an engineer. Then once you know that you're an engineer, where's your path? What are you building? And then once you know what that is, then you're able to go and talk to others and tell them about your journey and the things that you want to do. And they'll believe in you because they know that you're real. And the work that you're doing is important because you've lived it. Then you get to play with robots. So I exchanged my bee costume, if you think about it, right? Not getting the job that I wanted. Having to face those fears. But having people who believed in me, right? Who supported me as an individual, as a man, as a young man. Who've just said, you know what, you're great. You don't know it yet. You might not feel it, but you're great. Just like I'm telling you all here, you guys are awesome and great because it's real. I've been there. Then you get through that. And you come back to Boston. You come back to your hometown. And then you meet people who also challenge you. Dr. Blake, again, my board chair that I mentioned, when I first got here. So he was like, okay, young man, I'm going to test you. So there was a project, a community website project. Do you remember, Dr. Blake? And then he said, I want to see if you can deliver. So again, just getting back to Boston, have to get acclimated again. And then he believed in me to get something done. Just like Ray Ramsey did at One Economy. And so there's no way that I was going to make him look bad because he believed in me. Accountability is a big thing. So the two men that brought you here, they believe in you. They wanted you to experience this. You all and myself are accountable. And that's a privilege to be accountable. It's a privilege. It's an honor.
Quick question, if you don't
Nope. Questions can come. Questions can come. I know we're short on time.
I know how much of a mentor Ramsey was to you. What was sort of some of the either his characteristics, or what about the conversation or his energy that connected you to him? Because we're all, kids are about energy, and they don't want to sit still. They're mad at me because I'm like, yo, I don't want to see y'all on your phones,
Right.
rings, whatever,
What he told me was one of the first things he said. He said, "You can't jive me." So jive mean, do you all know what jive means? Because I know that's like an old school. That's
They call it capping.
yeah, no capping. Right. So again, this was another black man, right? So he's like, man, you can't jive me, because I had the gift of gab. Like I could talk a good game, right? So okay, that's what we're doing. Okay, that's fine too. But he kept it so real, as people say, and I don't take that very lightly, right? Because he said, I want you to talk to me as your brother, as your friend. He said, just have a conversation with me. This is a job interview, yes, but I want to know who you are as the individual. And that was one of the very first times at that age when I was trying to figure things out, where I was lost a little bit, where I had this black man say to me, just talk to me. And that was the opening for me, right? That was the opening, because at that point, everything just flowed out. Whether I wanted to or not, it just all came out. And we had a conversation about family, friends, everything else in my life. So that was the thing. And then, again, he gave me an opportunity. It wasn't an opportunity I wanted, but it was the opportunity that I needed at the time. I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it did. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a retired Boston Public School teacher, as you know, but people know. When we talk about access,
Yes.
One thing that I find about the STEM and the STEAM programs is that a lot of times it's very dependent on partnerships with universities. Because technology is so important, and because inner city kids are many years, I think one time I read something that was like 47 years behind white kids when it comes to technology. Is there something that, as far as access, you could work with, and I don't know if you are, with Boston Public Schools, that it doesn't always have to be in partnership, that this should be part of the curriculum.
Yes.
And I understand that having the resources to build a sophisticated computer lab is important. But why do some kids get it and some kids don't get it? Because we're not independent of partnerships.
Yes. So there's an example that I want to share that's related to that. So we work with a school system. For over the past 4 or 5 years, they asked us to train their students and give them access to Excel. Because in their school, they're being taught Google Docs and it's Google spreadsheets. And these students during the summertime have these jobs in these financial institutions and others. And that knowledge isn't transferable. So they're not being in school, they're being taught one thing, but in the real world, they have to know something totally different. And again, this is something that we've done for over 4 or 5 years now. And so you would say to yourself, because we say, well, why isn't the change? If you said school system are coming to us to know that there needs to be a change, why aren't you doing it? Now, I can't answer to the why they're not changing, because they should be changing. I can say that we are working with school systems to think about curriculum development and design so that kids are getting that knowledge in the classroom and out of the classroom. But it's also important for them to have a blended learning environment. That's extremely important. But why they're not getting it in the classroom is beyond me. Because again, 1984, my first access point to technology. I was able to go to a school in the suburbs that believed in the access of technology. So you could think, is there a belief within certain school systems that technology is truly important? I know that there are teachers within certain schools who want more technology access. but they're also bombarded with everything else that they have to do, whether it be MCAS, now that are going back, I believe, online, and themselves having to learn about technology. And so you're caught. And what do? A change needs to happen, an overhaul needs to happen. There needs to be more access points within school. It shouldn't be that at a certain grade level you have access to it. You should be taught certain versions and access points at a very early age. I mean, the statistics spoke to that. So why aren't we, is always the question. And what needs to happen? We need to happen. We need to become awoke, and we need to activate. But that's something that can't just happen, can't be a one-off. That has to be something that we do on a daily basis in order for that work to happen. Yes, ma'am. Can you state who you are?
My name is April Mitchell. Thank you for asking that question. My fellow former teacher. I'm the Deputy Chief of Education for the Mayor's Office of Boston. So the fact that it hasn't happened is exactly why we engage with a partnership with the Timothy Smith Network. And I want to say, in short, there are 5 reasons why it hasn't happened. Okay, one, that we haven't had across the system adequate vision of what it looks like to bring all of our young people into this kind of modern economy. And part of it is because as teachers and government officials and principals, we have not been invited to that world any more than our students have. And so that's one way that we are working to solve the problem. So when these teams of students are going out, we are working with teachers to be part of that. We're establishing externships with teachers in these kinds of economies so that they can begin to get a vision of what the world of work looks like for young people and start thinking about how do you design lesson plans so that students are engaged in the kind of problem solving that professionals in their careers are problem solving around. So teachers are used to thinking about their academic subjects, right? So I'm a science teacher, so I'm going to teach a student how to engage in the scientific process like a scientist. Well, we need to have students engage in engineering processes as if they were going to become engineers, and architectural processes as if they were becoming architects, and computer software programming as if they were going to be becoming programmers and coders. And that can be integrated into the academic content, but it is a complex thing that needs to be studied and worked on with teachers. We have confidence that our teachers can get it when we support them properly. So it's the one, the vision. 2, it's making sure that our teachers and our students and our whole community really have a vision for what that looks like. The other is we need the civic capacity for everyone to say this is a priority so that we can make the political justification for funding. So when we have partners like Milton Irving, Timothy Smith Network, powerful board members like over here, when we have Harvard, MIT saying the same thing, it gives us, our businesses, it gives us a lot more political capital to put a large item in the budget because that's real. The other piece is that, I don't know if you addressed, Milton, is that even when we have the technical components in place in terms of the training, sometimes we have the right what, but we don't have the right how. And what I mean by that is that some of these kinds of fields have been considered off limits to our young people. And Milton, you've suggested this in your presentation, but I would love for you, and this is the question part, to be more explicit about this. There are ways that we have sent messages implicitly to our young people that science isn't for them, right? That computers aren't for them, that technology and robots aren't for them. It's because of the images they see. So they have to be seen and taught in ways that are culturally competent.
Yes.
It sounds like ways that they can access. It sounds like this is a career identity that they can embrace. And that's where I think has been one of the most added values of having Timothy Smith Network that can work with our students, that can relate to them, that can help them build their competence, their career identities as young people, and say, yeah, I can do this. I don't have to look a certain way, I don't have to talk a certain way. I can do this because I got the skills. And you're out there in the community to show this as in their neighborhoods, as well as our neighborhoods, my neighborhood, as well as in the schools. Can you talk about the cultural?
Yes. So, I mean, you spoke about cultural relevance
Yeah.
and even popular culture. We've been very fortunate to work with individuals. I mentioned Nisha before, who has an MLab series. And one of her very first MLab series, so it's a video web series, was Black Panther. Everybody saw Black Panther, I'm sure, or didn't see it yet? You guys saw Black Panther? So she was able to take the movie Black Panther, right? And in Black Panther, they had this great lab room where the sister was able to create different objects and tools. So she was able to take that, put it in video and make it relevant. But not just put it in video to make it relevant, but she used it in the video, but also used it in our own spaces in the community. So we have fab labs across the city. So in those fab labs, you can create funky things like my guy right here who comes everywhere, but you can create other awesome things that are relevant to you. That came from the Roxbury Innovation Center, by the way, which is another part of the Timothy Smith Network. But she was able to create something that was culturally relevant. Talk to people about how do you get excited, since there was a lot of excitement about Black Panther. And then do you want to be involved? Do you want to be engaged? If you remember at the end of Black Panther, they came to a project building, right, where the brother was unfortunately murdered. But they were mystified because they saw this spaceship. Just like the young person was mystified when he saw the robot, right? So we were able to connect popular culture and things that people hear about to things that they now have access to. That is extremely important, to be able to use popular culture, but not just use it, but use it in a way where folks can have access to. It's upon us, as Ava was saying, is that I need to beat it over the head of you guys and say, engineering, technology, innovation is within you. You guys can do it. Just like you guys are getting hit over the head with cigarette commercials, alcohol commercials, all of those things that will not help get you to where you want to be in life. It is up to myself and all of us to make sure that we are getting in your heads on a daily basis. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that Timothy Smith, I'm European, I work with Timothy Smith that work. And one of the things that we did, inaugurated was the Black History Month. Every day we did a profile of blacks in technology. I think we should continue to really push it. That's a good discussion. The point being is that we have to change the narrative by showing the people, that's what you were doing with that, the people who are now locked out of technology, the people who are innovators and who are creators 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so all that we see in technology, the iconic figures of people are Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and other white brothers in this history. But we don't know the names of the people of mass descent in this country who created essential elements of technology that without their creations, we wouldn't be where we are now. And I think that part of what we have to do is what Tia said did during Black History Month, but do it even bigger, is to show the young people over there, your ancestors, the people who are still alive now, they created this technology. They created ancient, the 3D glasses. This woman that we learned about at our Black History event, a black woman, Patricia Bath, she is the one who's credited for making cataract surgery a lot easier, a lot safer, and more effective. But how many people know that? So I think part of it is the information is there. I think it's up to us to continue doing what we did to spread that so young people can see themselves. Because when you can't see yourself in that picture, it's hard to put yourself there.
Yes,
Ask a question. Yes, when you talk about access, right, isn't it money? Because as we were driving out here, right, we were talking about the buildings that we were seeing, drove through Fenway Park and saw the high, the towers, then we come past MIT and then the Harvard. But we're coming from a school that building is almost 100 years old. And you mentioned Weston, that you went to Weston. My kids also went to the MECO program, suburban school system. my daughter actually went to see my granddaughter in a little musical yesterday, and she goes to Weston. And my daughter comes home to me and she says, Daddy, my daughter's 28 years old. My middle daughter, so that's how old I am. And she said that school was incredible. She was like, it was like wood and glass and all this, you know. I wonder who the architects were. So I looked it up online. Let's find out where this school is. I want to see it. You know, and she was just so, you know, enamored just by how beautiful this school was. And this is what our kids have. You're from the city of Boston. So you see our kids are going into this. When you talk about technology, they got smart boards now at your school. But the school itself should be beautiful, bright, inviting. So when our kids come there, they want to be there from early in the morning to late at night. Because I know out in Weston and other suburban communities, those kids are out there till like 7, 8 o'clock at night. They don't want to leave school. So their kids aren't being killed and things like that at, you know, early in the evening, whatever, because they're at school. They're in a safe place. In the city of Boston, I'm a police officer. I brought these kids out here. We haven't lost one child in the school system yet while they're in school. So think about that. If we can keep those kids in school learning, you know, in beautiful, bright buildings, and that money that we have, those big, beautiful buildings that are being built around the city, if some of that money was poured into the school system, so they have big, beautiful buildings, you know, I think it would make a big difference with these children, and they would think about that technology. Because they could see it in their school,
Correct.
and it would transfer into what they want to be, right? You only dream about what you've seen, right? You can't dream about something that you haven't seen before.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I agree with everything that's been said. My name is Alyssa Goodman. I'm a professor here, and we also run this Worldwide Telescope Ambassadors Outreach Program that we should talk to you about later.
Yeah.
But that's not my question. My question is, when we work with teachers in schools, we often have to bring our own technology because the schools, even the affluent schools, don't have the right technology. But the students all have the right technology. And so my question is, do you actually do anything yet? Are there programs? You know, the most beautiful technology that everyone practically has is one of these things. And there are hardly any programs that use them because the teachers don't want the kids holding their cell phones in their hand during school. And I'm just curious if you know, because this is an access point.
Yes, it is.
Very beautiful, very sophisticated access point that most people have no idea how it works. That was one of your points. So
Yes.
I'm just curious if there's any programs.
So there is, and Adrian actually runs it for seniors, actually, because they want to know. They want to be connected to their grandchild or to their sons and daughters in different places in their family themselves. But you're absolutely right. You know, how do we work with educators to say, okay, I understand it can be distracting. You actually talked about it too. But how do we leverage it in a point where it becomes productive? So that we're seeding them differently. We're giving them a new lens on what this device means for their lives. Go ahead.
There's a disconnect because our kids are advanced in terms of technology. They are because of how their abilities to understand what software is needed, what features are needed. But it's sort of like being in 9th grade and somebody tells you, hey, I want you to go to college, but by the way, it costs $70,000. So if you're a 9th grader and you've never heard that before, you're going to say, I can't pay for that, so I'm not going. So I'm not going to do this work because I have to do a whole lot of work so I can eventually pay $70,000, but they do not know how to pay for college. So just like they love technology, but they may not know how to make a career out of knowledge that's already been attained based on what they have taught themselves. So I think the short-term answer is to sort of get folks like you guys in front of kids, and once you get them in front of kids, you may not, every 10 kids, you may get 4 kids, and then you get in front of 10 schools, right? And then you have 40 kids, and then there's your network. And the greatest network in the city of Boston amongst these kids is their moms and their Snapchats. And then, you know, it's just sort of like if they weren't so mad at me about not having their phones out, if these guys were on Snapchat right now, we get back to the school. Hey, Corey, where'd you take the boys?
Yes.
Why couldn't you take me? So all of a sudden, if these guys if I feed them the right information, hey, listen, you guys are at this amazing event, and you could actually leverage this opportunity into whether it's an internship or whatever, then all of a sudden they're connecting the dots, and then they could see themselves in that position. And we suffer as adults from there's a lack of skill generally in terms of informing kids how to make something of themselves. We could say it and be mad about it, or you need to do something, you need to do this, whatever. Okay, and they're sort of looking at their way of saying how is like, all right, whatever, you know. So we're close.
1 second.
You know, I think that oftentimes parents may not be able to afford or do not buy computers, but every kid from the age of 2 to 3 has one of these. And oftentimes in schools, what we do, we have them put it away. And the idea of this, how do we as educators or organizations like this begin to train our teachers to be able to change their culture, that this is a bad thing, and help to instruct kids in how to use it within the schools, and so they're not penalized in the process of doing it. But at the same time, if you know something, you can teach it. And I think for all of us around now, we're saying, looking at all this, no, we don't want to do that. We can't do that. And I think that's a fallacy, because if we're not willing to do it, you know, even though we're old, at least I'll talk for myself, that we run away from it, and that we've got the talent right in our houses, in the sense of how do we get our kids to teach us how to use this and how to do it. And because they don't have the power to change the politics of the school. But if you have the feeling and know this and see how important it is, you have the power to change the politics, you know, of the school, and making sure that BPS is equal to some of the other suburban schools. Because once when they leave your school, they're going to college and they're going to have to compete with that same kid who has everything in his classroom for the kids who are told to put your cell phone to.
I'll get back. Go ahead, young man.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Benjamin. I'm a sophomore here at Astrophysics. I'm also wondering, like yourself, I'm also trying to figure out my way in college. I'm trying to start my own business in a way, bridging this gap between people of color, small business communities, and trying to build up myself as a branding service, a marketing service in a way. My question is, how do we use the technology that I have in these communities to kind of implement that at, I guess, my college age?
Does anybody have I can respond. Does anybody have a response for a young man who wants to use technology to help market the work that he's doing in the community? So.
He brought up a good thing. Social media alone. When I was in the classroom, I had students create web pages, and so web pages, social media, and that's what I wanted to say to you too. You said if kids could get on your Snapchat. Do you have your phones? Right. I can sit in here tweet and take out your phones and do a Snapchat right now. That you are at this event.
I'm cool with it.
You guys have a green light. You better take your phones out.
Take your phones out. I have to tweet and take your phones out.
I'm cool with it
do
now.
Snapchat right now. I mean, your kids feel that we give them permission for so many things, so they need permission to do that. Right. So you have permission to Snapchat right now about being at this conference, this lecture about Snapchat. We need to start, when we say change the narrative, we say to people, telephones. You say kids 2 to 100 have a phone. Stop calling it a phone. I would not touch this thing until one of my colleagues said to me, I cannot believe you. I had a flip phone forever. I cannot believe you. It's a computer. I was like, oh. As soon as she said it's a computer, I went and got the thing, and I was like, I was with Technology Goes Home with the City of Boston. I taught technology to parents and students after class. But I did not realize that this was a computer. So stop saying phone and say computer, and you see things that will happen when you say that. And I wanted to ask Milton from something that this young lady over here said about being locked out. At what age, when you said that, I was saying, at what age would you consider somebody being locked out from getting interested or doing things like this?
Well, I think you can learn at any age. Because we have programs for seniors that love technology, and they get on Facebook, and we actually have a cousin that was on Facebook jail, and how old is she? 90. So she's 90 using Facebook and got put in Facebook jail. So think about it. So you always have access points, but as you get older, right, there are things that you have to, really learn and keep up with because things change in technology. Yesterday there was an outage. Facebook, Instagram, a lot of things. Half of my friends went crazy. I can't, we had to give it a while because it's so embedded in us at this point. It is our computer. It's how we communicate. I know I have to wrap up. Do you have a, yes, sir.
One question, yes. I'm Phil Sadler. I'm the director of this department here. And this is my classroom that you're teaching.
Thank you for having us, by the way.
I had to pick a tie this morning, and I ended up picking a tie with 500 honeybees on it. And now I know why.
Yeah, there it is.
So my research group studies the impact of computer science taken before college. And we also find that kids who are exposed to computer science do want to become computer scientists or technologists. But what about when they get to college and take those courses? And we find that the computer science helps in their computer science courses in college, but helping much more is mathematics. So something you said before, the mathematics, how good you are in mathematics counts about 4 times more than how good you are in computer science when you enter college. And have you, is there a way to promote the learning of mathematics as well as
so we were talking about relevancy, right, and in culture, and using those things, those tools, to make kids want to explore and to digest mathematics differently. They're actually digesting the same, but we're putting on the plate differently, and we have to be dedicated enough to do so because it's not the traditional. Right? So we have to be also willing to be explorers, as Ava was talking about too, about thinking differently about how we give these young people and ourselves the appetite that we have in feeding ourselves differently. And that needs to happen early. Very much so. So I agree. I know I have one more, and then I have to, I'm getting the boot a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One thing. So I'm a fellow here at the CFA and graduating soon. I just wanted to know if anybody, my research is in solar physics, but if there are any educators that want me to come visit their classroom, I'm eager to come and do outreach at any of these organizations. So find me after the talk.
There it is. So I know I'm having to wrap up. So, yeah, we talked about social media, but that young man, I got him. Yeah, he's covered. Yes, he knows that he's also part of my fraternity. So, yeah, he's covered. He's good to go. But at the end, because I know I have to wrap up, I wanted to, of course, thank you, my village, for being here. This has been an amazing time. It's actually flew by. To you young people, again, you are awesome. And I'm going to say to you that Bill can get in contact with me. We're going to take pictures and do all that. But even outside the pictures, I'm around and I'm available to you. I'm around and I'm available to you. Thank you for coming. I know I got to wrap up. This is class. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, thank you. Thank you.